Hi everyone, today's February 2nd, 2019, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is Green Ranger.
And I'm Deck Tech.
And this is the week coming up to the Kaiba Cup, which was announced a while ago in February. There was only one real thing happening this week, and this week in Duel World, card games on motorcycles. That was a really big deal. Turbo dueling was added to the Jack Atlas event before it goes away, so we get to experience a whole new game mode, essentially, and we're going to talk about that game mode. A bunch of esports also happened this week, and a couple of new cards to go over as well. But not a whole lot, just mostly the turbo dueling. So, Deck Tech, where are you this week?
Yeah, like you said, not a ton going on this week. As I mentioned last week, I had a bunch of gems, and I was trying to figure out how to use them. For some reason, I decided to buy through, I forget what it was called, the Stardust one, I think, the set to try to get Gen X Undyne. Because, I can never give up Sea Stealth. And I bought a decent amount of packs of that, but it was literally the only card in the set that I wanted because I already had multiple copies of the various other important cards. And so I eventually kind of shook myself out of that one because it was that was pretty dumb. So threw away a couple gems on that. We were talking before the show about Gustos, so I might be trying that one out instead for next week, so we'll see. Maybe that's how I'll spend the rest of my extra gems. But in terms of actually playing, it's been kind of chill. I didn't end up getting all those games in that I probably wanted to and should have at the end of the month, so I don't even know if I ended up Hidden Legend. I barely got 30 wins for the ticket. I remember that was one thing that I did. But I've just been trying to keep up with the Jack Atlas and all of that, and it's a rainy day here though, and I don't have too many obligations, so hopefully I can get some games in later today and be good and actually do that.
Panic? A lot of panic in California when it rains?
Oh yeah, for sure. Can't go outside; it's unsafe. I actually had a blackout. Unrelated, but it's funny because of timing. Like yesterday or the day before? Yeah, the day before yesterday, we just had a blackout for 6 hours, and it had nothing to do with the rain because the rain hadn't come yet. But I like to pretend that
it's foreboding.
Say the world's just ending. How about you? Safe from the rain?
We had the polar vortex. It wasn't horrible, but I mean I was okay. I wore a lot of clothes and I was fine. But
yeah, I don't know. I think a bit of light rain sounds a little worse than a polar vortex, but, whatever.
Anyways, last month, I ended at exactly 100 wins, which was pretty much the same thing I did last time. But I hit Legend 3 at some point with my Karakuri deck that I was playing, but at the end I was still Legend 1. So I guess I lost a lot of games in the 90-something game zone, and I just don't know how to play the deck, or I don't use the right deck. I don't know what it is, but I don't play the deck well, so I did finish farming Jack Atlas, though. I did get my 3 Strongwind Dragons, so I only have 2, and they gave me 1 for free, so...
oh, nice. Yeah, I need to do that still. Forgot.
I got to the point where I had, the 40 of each N, so it didn't come easy for me, but I just kept doing it, and it was easy because of the turbo duels. That makes you not need to farm at all, so you just auto duel and then you just auto duel the turbo duel that gives you 4 extra duel assessments, so you're gonna wind up with 8 no matter what deck you play. Anyhow, I did finish him, so that's cool. And for the Kaiba Cup, I have a few options. As I mentioned, I suck at Karakuris, so I might go back to Vampires. I have a few different options. I could play Noble Knights if I wanted to, so I typically get impatient with my decks, so I might just switch them up, see how it goes. And it shouldn't be hard at all in February to pick up the ranked rewards because it's part of the Kaiba Cup, so ranked is less important.
Right.
So, as mentioned, there were a bunch of different tournaments that happened last week. And the first one we're going to talk about is the Sem Cup 1. And the Sem Cup 1 is based out of Taiwan, so they casted it there, I think. And the rewards were all in Taiwan dollars, so it would be funny if they sent them the money in Taiwanese money. That would be pretty funny. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I think your bank or whatever would just convert it for you. Of course, at a fee, but I think it'd be okay. The other aspect of it being in Taiwan and with Taiwanese personalities is that we don't know who like I couldn't even begin to tell you how to say the first caster's name. The second one is Ray, and then some symbols that I can't
Rice,
read.
Rice. So he likes
Yeah.
rice. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go.
There's
Yeah,
There's videos. Yeah. So.
that's good.
And something that we did notice is we've talked mostly about the Duel Links meta tournaments, and they do have they shape themselves based on their own players, and you kind of see that here. Karakuris are the hotness in the Duel Links meta community, but in this tournament, they only wound up third in representation. So Kawaki Meirus, Vampires, Karakuris, and Buster Bladers saw near equal representation. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think the big story is Vampires making the comeback in representation, and as we're about to get into, doing pretty well in terms of finishes as well.
Yeah, you see the D heroes go down a bit, and I think that has to do with some of it, with the Vampires coming back, or they're just really good against Kawaki Meirus. That could be another thing. So, all right, first place, Triple D, Bandit Vampires. So this is a 23 card deck, which is what you would expect, and it has a lot of tools to lose life, like Vampires do typically for Bandit. This one has more in Mirror Walls and also Cosmic Cyclones in the side deck. Kribo is a card that comes in and out of Vampires, but seems like they're being put back in, and that's pretty good against the Kawaki Meirus, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. They have the one counter guy, but otherwise, I guess you would use it just to make sure that you don't get OTK'd. In fact, now that I think of it, I'm not actually sure if the counter guy counters it.
Well, there's one that counters like spells, traps. There's two different ones.
Yeah, so the point is just to prevent yourself from getting OTK'd. It seems fairly relevant in a Kawaki Meiru dominant meta.
And I guess it makes sense that Vampires would come back, because Vampires need life, and the Masked Heroes would bring you down to a certain life, but like it's kind of like coin flipping if Kawaki Meiru's one turn kills you or not. Like you just need like 1,000 life points or 1,100 life points for Vampires, and then you win. So, yes, that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. This person also wisely, we've talked about this before, but not everyone does it for some reason. Even though they don't run any tuners, they do run Econ, and so they have a bunch of synchros in their extra deck, which at this point, just do that. There's no reason not to. Every once in a while, you'll be able to steal their tuner and then use it to kill their thing and obviously tribute yours, but to summon something bigger, and that's just a huge tempo swing. So definitely do that.
I'm trying to do the math about what they could make. The Gigantic Castle and the Grace kind of makes sense. They don't have any 3 stars though for the Junk Synchron. The 5 stars make sense as well, and the 7-star Ancient Fairy Dragon as well.
Yeah, I mean, you would do, if you steal a Junk Synchron, you could just get rid of any of your 4s to make a 7, or you've got a couple 2s with the Retainer.
If they do like a 2 and a 1 and a 3 to get the 6, because they don't run any 3 stars. Yeah.
But the Junk Synchron's a 3.
Yeah, I'm saying the Vampires need a 3. They don't have a 3.
But why?
Because they have some 6-star tuners.
Oh, yeah. I think it's just, yeah, they have a couple 6s, but they also have a 5 and a 7 and a 9. They don't have an 8, I guess is the only thing they're missing. But basically, I think the reason why you have just like kind of one of each, you have 2 6s, I guess, because you like those more, but one of each of the other ones, just so that you maximize your chances of being able to steal something and get some, do this trick with whatever you have out and they have.
Right. Anyhow. Second place, Mazurique, Sealed Tombs, Kawaki Meiru. This is kind of the optimal deck. There's no trap cards here, and it's a bit of a toolbox with the flex monsters. So there's Sandman, Wall, and Ice. Those are one each. And I guess the skill in the deck is to figure out which one you would special summon with Earnright based on, whatever archetype you're facing, I guess. That's what the skill of the deck is to use which monster.
Yep. And other than that, it's pretty clear. It's, pretty clear cut. It has 3 Sphere Karibos, like we were just talking about. It's pretty strong against the mirror and in this meta. And then it does also have that whole extra deck econ thing if you consider the sideboard as well. And it's a fairly similar looking extra deck where you have a smattering of various things except a couple more 7s, so whatever. Same idea.
7 seems to be the best spot for synchros. They could just play around with a bunch of different things.
Yeah, I think the main thing is that the most prevalent, tuner is the junk synchron that we just talked about. So you have to look at what you have and see how it lines up. So this deck runs a decent amount of 4s, and it also has the Sphere Karibos, which are the 1s. So he runs that one 4-star guy, and he also runs some 7s because there's the 7s there. Whereas Vampires has kind of just a mix of various. It has some 1s, it has a 2. Like you said, I guess it is a little weird in terms of it not having a 3, that there's 2 6s in there. But I guess the idea is to combine your Familiar and your Retainer, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Third place, Panace. Last Gamble, Buster Blader. This is the typical Buster Blader deck. You've got your 2 Goddess with the Third Eye. That's the card they use. And I like the card Stamping Destruction in the side deck. It's a card that we haven't seen for about 2 years, pretty much when it came out, and then we haven't seen it, but it fits this deck perfectly because they do a ton of damage, and they're dragons.
Yep, I agree. Like you said, fairly standard. The only thing is that Goddess with the Third Eye that we've talked about in the past couple of weeks of how you want to do your fusion substitute monsters.
Right. And third place, Kappa. Restart spellbooks. So spellbooks are not completely dead despite the nerfs. No treacherous trap holes, of course. You got your 2 spellbooks of Fate, and you have 2 floodgates instead of that. And in the sideboard, you see the Forbidden Dress, and Kaiku, and Unending Nightmare. The Forbidden Dress was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, this is a bit of an interesting deck. There's kind of some odd choices just all around, including the 2 Floodgate Trap Hole. You wouldn't think of it as, like, I don't know, a card that you would really want to force in there, but I guess it does make some sense with, especially because it can help with the Kwaki Meirus and, I don't know, just general protection.
Back then it would be like Paleozoic Canadias everywhere, but I guess it's a bit of a meta shift where they're going back to floodgates. I know Karakuris have not Karakuris, Gustos are relying on floodgates as well, so there's some kind of meta shift going on.
Yeah, that was the thing we were talking about before. That one was different though because they were using the Gustos was trying to use Endless Trap Hell. So that was why you couldn't use Paleozoic, because it would get out of your... Yeah. So this is a little bit different. This one, they just seem to be, like... It kind of looks like they just tried to do a one-for-one substitution, right, with their Treacherouses.
Right.
Like, well, I can't run Treacherous or the other Spellbook of Fate anymore, so what else do I have? I guess Floodgate Trap Hole? Seems a little weird. It's a good card and it makes sense, but this list might stand for a little bit more tuning. There's not really much room you can flex on, but it seems like maybe there's a little bit of room there.
That is that tournament. We're going to talk about the giveaway tournament by Duel Links Meta. This is number 9, and it's pretty cool. It is 168 players. It's a free tournament, and there are actually pretty much no rules in this tournament. So it's a best of 3 single elimination, but there are no restrictions on what deck you use. So you could use the same deck 3 times. You could bring any deck you want. You didn't have to submit deck lists for them to check if you cheated. So there's a lot going on here, and you got to see some really cool decks as well.
Yeah, I like this. It's probably a little bit more reminiscent of the latter, where it's very mixed, and there is still like meta and top meta decks and more prevalent decks, but it's not just like only the best competitive decks, because you get some value from that surprise factor, and also it's just open. So, not if it's open, you're going to get players who are a little bit less committed, just kind of entering the pool because they can. Obviously, they're still very committed because they're going into a tournament, so they're going to be, pretty solid players. They're going to have fairly solid collections, but they're not necessarily going to only be playing the very top decks. So we get to see some fun stuff from it.
First place, Stevie. Stevie bought 3 decks. The first one is a Karakuri deck, and as I mentioned, I suck playing Karakuris, and in a way, the deck kind of shifted a bit. There is Treacherous Trap Hole and Econ, and they're kind of moving away from the Hey True Nades, which I have 2 of, and Shinzeng Hu's kind of in its place. This one has a bit of the same monster composition, except there's only 2 merchants. So typically, you would see 3 Komachi and 3 merchants, but there's 1 less merchant in this deck.
Interesting. I haven't played the deck, so do you have kind of some insight into why you think he built it this way?
I have no idea. I mean, there are often cases where you just lose when you play your merchant. It's like, oh, I forgot my guy has to attack this turn, and then I lose the game. Or, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, cool.
All right, he brought this water deck. You talk about this water deck. It's kind of crazy.
Yes. Yeah, so this tournament happened after I already blew my gems trying to get Undyne, but I guess Stevie and I were on the same page because it is running 3 of it, as well as, and the idea for that, of course, is so that you can get out your Sea Stealth attack. So it's running 3 of those, 1 Citadel Whale, and only 1 Sea Stealth attack. And it runs Mythic Deaths as well to help you out with there. And then just kind of, because you run those, you have to run the Gen X controllers. But basically, the rest of the deck is kind of just decent water monsters, powerful effects. There's got the Paleozoics are also water types, so they're decent. I mean, obviously, you don't play them for their monsters usually, but it's nice to help chip away. Whereas your Sea Stealth attack with the Citadel Whale kind of gets the big things out of the way, and then you use your little guys like those to chip away, and then you have things like the Atlantean heavy infantry. He's got 3 of those, and 1 Snowman Eater to also help kind of get stuff out of the way. So it just seems like a fun, different deck. Since you don't run in this one the Fishborg Planter, you can run a lot more spells and traps, which he does. And since you have a good amount of tutors in the Gen X, in the Citadel Whale, in the Abyss, Mermail, Abyss Spike, all of those cards let you tutor for stuff. Oh, the Beautiful Princess as well is in here. Just so many good things for tutor effects. He can afford to have more cards in the deck, because the downside of doing that is that you have less consistency in what you draw, but you make up for that with all of your various tutor effects. So I think this is a cool deck. I almost certainly would have built it differently. I like the Fishborgs, always have in my Sea Stealth, but I haven't played that deck in a long time, and I've never been able to play this Gen X Undyne version because I only have 1 of it, and that's why I was seeking out the other one. So this looks cool, and I think I've given up on the Undyne for now, but then I saw this list, and now I'm intrigued again, so who knows? I might be back in it.
And Stevie also brought Kaiba Corp Bling Masked Heroes. I would assume the mask change is the card that is shiny. I don't expect it to be anything else. And we did expect this skill to see some play, so it's great that it's finally here.
Yeah, it makes sense. Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but if you've been to Duel Links Meta, you'll see that their website does not have an indicator for, if any cards are shiny or glossy. They are photographs provided by the Duel Links Meta team in a directory, not just screenshots from the player's deck. So we don't know for sure, but that's a pretty good guess that you would want it to be mask change, because that's kind of the most important card of the deck and what you kind of just build everything around. So Cool. I like it. Like you said, it makes sense. We've talked about it before. In this case, the thing that he's using to activate the skill is he's got 3 Cosmic Cyclones, which just kind of works well with the deck as a whole as well.
Second place, ZZ Mondo. So ZZ Mondo also brought a really cool deck. I think it's the first time we're seeing elemental heroes in the top 4. So this is a miracle draw elemental hero. Makes use of the new Jaden skill that gives you Pot of Greed as well. I guess the card to kind of put together was the Mecha Phantom Beast Tetherwolf, which isn't even an elemental hero, but it is a wind monster. It sticks on the board because of the token, and the wind monster lets you summon the Great Tornado when you fuse it with the elemental heroes. And a card that is also very overlooked is the Captain Gold. And Captain Gold's effect is you discard it to the graveyard, add Skyscraper to your hand. If Skyscraper is not on the field, destroy this card. So mostly this gets you a field that adds 1,000 attack to your monsters, and it also discards Captain Gold so you could use Miracle Fusion.
Yeah. So it's an interesting deck. I don't know where exactly it came from, but we'll see it somewhere else as well. Oh, is that just the same guy later on in it?
I feel like someone else used that card.
Okay, well, we'll see.
Same guy.
When I was looking at it earlier, it might have been the same guy. But it's a really cool deck. Like you said, there's not much new in it. It kind of just came out of nowhere. Seems very interesting. But it is the URs, the Mecha Phantom Beast Tetherwolf. We have seen that card in other decks, so it might be worth it if you want to, seek it out and get it. It just seems like a fairly solid card, but it's not, it is a UR, so you're going to have to buy it through 3 times if you want it, and that is a bit pricey, so, keep that in mind. But definitely check this out. We'll have the link in the show notes. It's not something that we're used to seeing, so pretty cool.
ZZ Mondo also brought Karakuris, and this version uses Trap Stuns. So 2 Trap Stuns basically to be the Hey Trunade or Shinzenhu of the deck. 2 econs as well, so otherwise fairly standard deck. Actually, it doesn't run offerings to Doom, so that's interesting.
Yeah, that is. Otherwise, like you said, pretty standard. So I guess since he bought the Tornado of Phantoms, he's using all his cards from it.
Yeah, seems like it. Or he just started playing the game or something. I don't know.
I don't think so. Maybe, but
this guy's
if you look at the next deck, you'll see.
Yep, this is a control synchro deck, and the Tetherwolf is reused here. So 3 Tetherwolves here as well. It uses the Kiza skill, of course, so that's what makes it the synchro part. And it has, it's like the junk synchrons, the breakers, a lot of trap cards.
Yeah, one thing you notice in his decks is that he really likes Econ. It's in, I think, all of them, and it works particularly well with the Mecha Phantom Beast because it makes the token so you can use that to Econ take. So that's a cool. Obviously, Econ taking isn't an innovation, but maybe using it with the Tetherwolf kind of is. That might be like a new step going forward in how the game's played. It also works well with the Junk Synchron, of course, because you're adding things to your side to use for those econ takes. And like any other control deck, it kind of wears you down with powerful cards that are kind of mid-sized, but there's decent ways to protect them. He's going old school with Curse of Anubis and Windstorm of Edequa, but just play medium-sized dudes, protect them, and chip your opponent away a couple thousand at a time. Seems like a solid deck. I like it.
Third place, Silence X. Balanced Masked Hero. This one uses a card called Mask Charge, and this basically lets you recycle your Mask Change in a monster. So you use, I think one of the reasons Masked Heroes are losing nowadays is because they run out. There's a few cards that make them run out, like Karakuris make them run out. And Gustos make them run out too, I think. So this gives you a 4th use of Mask Change so you don't run out. I guess that's something.
Yeah, it also lets you add a couple other guys to your extra deck. This one runs 2 Masked Hero Goka in that spot. But I've seen, I forget what it's called, but I've seen the more
Diane,
defensive
right?
guy.
Oh, Diane, right? Or something like that?
Yeah, let me see.
It's a
Maybe I
new
can
one, right?
find it
The
here.
new one, right?
Yeah, the new one.
Yeah.
Right. So and that the idea is that those cards require you to use Mask Change as well, but you would never previously use them because if you're using Mask Change, you're going for Anki almost always. But once you add the Mask Charge, then you can get it back and you can get another one, and so now you finally have a chance to use those guys. So
Yeah. It seems the polymerization guys aren't good enough, but sometimes that Vision Hero guy who hits things 3 times is pretty good. But I guess these cards are better.
yeah, I think it's probably just less, a slightly smaller package in terms of how many deck slots it requires you to give up. So that's maybe worth something. It's like saving you 1 or 2 deck slots, but I don't know if that's worth it. I think it also has to do with them liking whoever the target is, which I can't find on the fly. So I guess we'll have to move on. You guys know what we mean. You look it up.
Wait, which card are you talking about?
Oh my god, what have you
That's
done?
Hero Diane, right?
Sure.
2800, 3000 defense came from selection
Yeah.
box 2. Yeah.
There you go. That sounds right. Oh, it was only in the selection box?
Yeah. So
That explains why I couldn't find it. Okay. Yeah.
So another cool thing about this tournament is the Aramids are here. So this is a life point boost Aramid deck. So it's all because of the new Synchro Monster Aroma Seraphi Rosemary, and that is kind of taking the place of Bergamot. There is one Bergamot in this deck. There's also Jinzo, and then 3 Stygian Securities. This kind of works as deck thinning. It's a tuner, and it's 1+4 for Rosemary to make the Synchro Rosemary.
Yeah, it's cool to see like a long-standing archetype come back. This is especially an archetype that's always really popular in like the middle tier of the ladder, like the whatever it is, gold, platinum range. Players seem to really like the Arrow Mages, so I'm glad that it's good enough that you can play it if you like it. So that's cool. I haven't tried it out.
Free deck,
but
completely free deck.
exactly, yeah. I was about to say, but it's all in the card trader, so you might as well try it out if you're interested because easy to get. It is interesting that he runs the Jinzo and like a bunch of traps, but I'm gonna defer to this person's judgment because I've played this deck none, and they played it and did pretty well and got placed in a tournament. So,
and Skillshot also brought an Aramid deck. This is what grows in the Graveyard Aramid, and this one is a very clean deck. There's 3 Junk Synchrons, 2 Rose Archer, 3 Jasmine, 2 Rosemary, 2 Offerings, 3 Field Spells, Aroma Garden, 2 Canadias, and 3 the Spell Absorbing Life, which helps you gain life to fuel their effects, of course. And of course, the Synchro Rosemary card is pretty much the linchpin in this deck. There's no Bergamots at all, so this is the boss monster of the deck.
yeah, and of course you still get to run Armade D's as well, which is just a solid card. So another take on kind of the same idea. Skillshot's a good player and deck builder that we've seen before, so another one to look at if you're interested in trying out the Arrow Mages. Maybe you'll try it out this way instead.
Yep. All right. Meta Weekly 57. Back to Duelist meta again. Well, we were just there, but this is the weekly tournament, and Karakuris remain top dog in this set. Vampires are starting to make their way, but they didn't really show up they showed up in first place, but you know what I mean. Karakuris are heavily represented. Koaki Meirus are there as well, and Vampires are third.
Yeah, which, in a certain respect makes their winning first place a little bit more impressive because there are less than half as many people as the Karakuris, and it still got first. And almost half of the people who brought Vampires ended up making the top 32. So, the deck's it's been around forever, and it's still around, it's still doing well.
Yeah. Risk Star, first place, Bandit Vampires. Unlike the last Bandit Vampires that won the SEM tournament, this one has no ways to lose life except from your Vampire moves. So you're just going to lose 500 at a time, and then you use Bandit. It's pretty consistent though. It has 3 Gozukis, which is something you typically never really saw. You typically saw 2 and then 3 skulls, but this one has 3 Gozukis. It just it's more consistent, I guess.
Cool. I also like he's got the split with 1 econ and 1 true nade in the main each, and then 1 of each in the sideboard too. So he gets to just adapt his deck however he wants, but also gets to have that main deck option to steal something and do the tuner and all that.
Yep. Second place, -1 Karakuri deck. I'm trying to figure out the difference between the Karakuri decks here. This is pretty much the standard deck you see. Hey Trunade is back here, but the Treacherous Trapple and Shinzen, who seem to be almost locks in the deck by now. Only 1 Cache. Some decks run 1. It has 2 Anatomies, so yeah, pretty standard deck.
Cool. Sounds good.
Third place, and 2. So and 2 also brought a Karakuri deck. This one has almost no card draw. You got 3 Offerings to the Doomed. Well, you have 2 Anatomies, but 3 Offerings to the Doomed and 1 Cache. So it's a little bit lighter on the card draw. Notably, it has 2 Treacherous Trap Holes and 2 Cosmic Cyclones. This one also runs 3 Soldiers as well. The Soldiers are a really good card against Enki. Just letting everyone know that's what the card is. Pretty good.
Okay.
Because it exhausts all their supplies and you don't take damage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what.
That makes sense. Okay, cool. Also, this one's just very removal heavy, right? It's got the 2 Treacherous Trap Hole and the 3 Offerings to the Doomed, so
yeah,
kind of to chip your opponent away in that sense, run them out of guys.
It's a bit more aggressive, yeah, I'd say, but you could the card draw is a lot less in this deck.
Yeah.
And Jano, third, fourth place. This one is a bit more unconventional as well. You've got 2 Econs and 2 Dust Tornadoes. Dust Tornadoes are a card you've never really seen in Karakuris, but it's nice to see it here. Otherwise, pretty much the same.
Yeah. Also runs a system down in the sideboard, which we haven't seen a ton. But I guess it's a way to kind of win the mirror match, which makes sense.
Seems better. I mean, it's the same as Acid Rain. Acid Rain probably destroys your monsters. Yeah, it does. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's why I figured he was running it instead. Because there's confirmation. Acid Rain kills your guys too. So instead, System Down makes, if you could spare the 1,000, which hopefully you can, because this deck isn't one that uses all its life points. Seems like a really good sideboard card for the mirror match.
The Banish effect is useless against them, because they don't use the graveyard at all. But, it's just saving your own. Because there are guys who could be face up, yeah.
Right, yeah, you just clear their board and retain all of yours. Seems good.
Yeah. That is it for the tournaments. Let's move on to the Duel Links Meta tier list update, where there are some pretty big movers this week.
Yeah, lots of changes. We talked about it last week, how based on its recent performance, we predicted that Karakuri would move its way up to Tier 1, and it did. It's just a really solid deck. It's having a lot of solid placements, more representation almost every week. It seems to have kind of taken over Kawaki Meru in that sense, in terms of representation and placements, as we just went over. The difference is that Kawaki Meru is still kind of shaping the meta. Karakuri is starting to, as we're seeing those Acid Rains and the System Downs, but it's still mostly a Kawaki Meru shaped meta, and so I think it's fair to keep Kawaki Meru in Tier 1, to add Karakuri to Tier 1, and then add Buster Blader to Tier 1 now as well. The deck isn't just a counter deck, but also seems to just kind of be pretty solid. We see it doing well. It has very explosive turns. It's fairly consistent as well. So we have those 3 decks as the Tier 1. And the notes here, it's always cool to read, the top player council comments as well as just the general explanation of the tier. And one thing they really like about the Karakuri is that it has a lot of card draw. Well, most builds of it do, as we were just talking about. And as a result, it can get to very important sideboard cards faster than most opponents can. And that seems to be an extra benefit for it in those formats where you have a sideboard. But obviously on the ladder you don't, and not in all tournaments do you have that sideboard. So that's something to consider when you're thinking about what decks to bring, is that one of the reasons why Karakuri is doing well in these tournaments is that it has that ability to get two sideboard cards that's not always going to be relevant for your games.
Right.
Tier 2 is still Masked Heroes and Vampires. Neither of them has moved. They're both somewhat relevant. They can still make finishes. They still have some prevalence. It seems like Masked Heroes is a little bit on the down, whereas Vampires is a little bit on the up, but not so much that either one really seems like it needs to move anywhere. Tier 2 seems about right for both of them. Tier 3 is still just Control as the only deck in there. It seems okay. Obviously, it got a couple placements that we were just talking about, and it's an okay deck. Tier 3 seems about right. Not really dominating anything, but making some appearances and some finishes and stuff. And then the last one is they added Gustos to the high potential class, or group. We were talking about it before the show, and we've mentioned it a couple times now. Gustos seems to be one way to counter, it's advertised at least as a way to counter Kawaki Meru. It has a lot of ability to stall opponents out because it recycles itself so well. And it's also a really cheap deck, which is not relevant for most tournament players, because the tournament players tend to be the people who have pretty full collections. But for regular ladder grinders, people like us, this might be something to look into if you want to try something new for attacking the ladder. Definitely on my list. I'm probably going to try it out this next week, see if maybe I want to bring it to the KC Cup.
Yep. Just one more note. I was going to say the same exact thing about Karakuris. Me being bad on it on the ladder made me think, oh, this is a really good tournament list. Because it keeps showing up, but I'm not doing too well with it on the ladder. But that definitely does make sense with the drawing into the sideboard aspect of it, and it's probably be even better for the Kaiba Cup when you're competing in stage 2, because all the people are pretty much in a tournament meta setting most of the time than compared to the regular ladder. So definitely be stronger in stage 2 than stage 1.
Yes, yeah, that's something to consider. You still don't have that sideboard aspect in stage 2, so even though it's going to look more like the tournament meta, I'm not sure if you still get that benefit unless you maybe put in some of those sideboard type cards into your main deck and just accept that every once in a while you're going to draw them when you don't want them. But sometimes it's just going to win you the game when you do draw them, and when you get to them sooner than your opponent does. So I always liked one of the things I liked about the Amazoness was that I could run some of those sideboard type cards, and it was good for a different reason. Amazoness couldn't draw to them super quickly in most cases. It was more a matter of Amazoness didn't really care if it drew cards it didn't need, because it could pitch them for other stuff. But this is kind of the inverse and flip side of that, where you can maybe sacrifice one of your deck slots or a couple of deck slots, knowing that every once in a while you're going to get a bad draw, but because you draw so many cards, you're more likely to just get a huge swing turn if it's the right matchup. So something to consider.
Yeah, my money is on Poisonous Winds. I think that's what the card is you're going to slot in.
Seems like a good choice.
All right. That's that. And we're going to talk about Turbo Duels. So, before the Jack Atlas event goes away, they put in Turbo Duels as a thing. Every 8 wins you get, a motorcycle comes up in the game, and you get to face Jack Atlas in a Turbo Duel. And it's different from the beginning. They do the coin flip differently. It's like there's an animation, you're racing Jack Atlas, and it's like whoever turns first will go first. And that's a new thing they put in. And it's a whole new game. You don't have a dual skill, first of all, and you go by speed counters. So speed counters, how it works is you get 1 point on the standby phase, 2 on a normal summon, 3 on a synchro summon, and when you have a monster destroyed, it's -1, and you can have 12 speed counters stored, a maximum. And it's basically it's kind of like mana in a digital card game, and using like dual skills as your mana or something. So that's a whole different aspect, not explored, but finally here in Duel Links. And how it works is you spend your 12 counters, and speed, spell, acceleration is your skill. 4 counters would give all your monsters 200 attack until the end of the turn. 6 counters, they say play a level 4 or lower monster in the hand that can be normal summoned. So play may not constitute summon. So it's like it's not even a special summon. It's like play a monster. 8 counters, draw a card. 10 counters, destroy 1 card on your opponent's side of the field.
Yeah, and I did a couple of these. I've been doing a good amount of auto duels just because, but I made sure to play a couple just to try it out, and also because I wanted to make sure that I beat the level 40 and the level 60 at least once, and it seems really fun. I really like it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it should be a permanent game mode. It's possible Konami is ahead of the curve and they know it, so they were testing it out here in this event to make it a permanent game mode. And it's definitely cool for digital games to like keep adding modes, I guess, like that would appeal to different people. And it's like if you're tired of the regular ranked meta, you have something else to do. Or maybe they could implement as part of the next tournament, like they did with the standard duels or something.
Yeah, or they can make it one, like they have those every once in a while. They do the special duel events. This could be kind of part of one of those, maybe. Just, for this month or week or whatever, we're doing those, what do we call them? Speed duel? No, whatever. Turbo duels, there we go. Yeah. It'd be fun. I like it.
And it fits with 5Ds. Synchros will give you 3 counters, which is the most, so you're incentivized to synchro. So maybe at some point later this year, when there are more synchro options other than Karakuris, we might see this game mode.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple synchros, and they add a few every set. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see how they do it. I think the main thing is that they want to keep the ladder probably separate from it, and then they only want to have so many things going at a time, and it's already usually a fairly high number in this game. So it'll be interesting to see how they implement it. But I hope they do. I hope you're right, because it was fun.
Very fun. All right, so before we wrap up, we have 3 new cards to talk about. These cards. So the first one came from the Duel-a-thon, which of course is a great way to use your to get gems, of course. And the first new card is the Green Turtle Summoner. It's a water spellcaster, 3 stars, 400, 1500 flip effect. Target 1 monster your opponent controls, destroy it. So it's pretty much a man-eater bug that has more defense and is a spellcaster. So it's something to consider for the Silent Magician decks. But you only have 1, so.
Yeah, seems like a solid card. It'll probably see some play. Man-eater bug doesn't really see much play anymore. Almost no play, actually, at this point. I ran it a little bit because it was for Junk Synchron to give me 5 stars. But obviously this wouldn't work for that, but it does have that spellcaster synergy, like you said, which might be worth more. So it seems like a fringe card. It might see some play.
People play Snowman Eater, right? Like, it's kind of the same effect. I'm not sure if they want it for its defense or what.
You know what? You're right. Yeah, people do play a lot of Snowman Eaters, so yeah, okay. I'm sold.
Ranked Duels updated, so new SR card and a new rare card. The first SR card is Genesis Dragon, 6-star, Light Dragon, 2200, 1800. Once per turn, you can send 1 dragon monster from your hand to the graveyard to add 1 dragon monster from your graveyard to your hand. When this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, return all dragons in your graveyard to your deck. So the notes, before I even read the notes, I was saying this is amazing with Kinmodo, and then that's the tip they give you. It's like, oh, discard Kinmodo and then get the card you just got. So
yeah,
that's what the combo is. It doesn't fit anywhere at all, though, but it's like any dragon deck that's not Blue Eyes or Red Eyes.
Right, which, of course, there aren't a ton that aren't one of those two. But Yeah, it seems like a fun card. It For some reason, I'm getting the vibe that it's probably going to only be in kind of those gold-ish ranks that we talk about all the time, the lower end of the ladder. But it seems pretty strong and fun and cool, and kind of you might as well, right? Get that.
There's a lot of lone wolf dragons in this game. They just do their own thing and no one plays them. They look pretty cool. So.
Yeah, maybe this is... I mean, dragons are the type of archetype that even if it's not that good, people just like dragons, and so people are going to try to figure out how to run it. So this seems like a card that'll probably see some play by someone who's having a good time, whether or not it's meta relevant or not.
Yep. And the rare card is GB Hunter, 4-star, 1200, 2000 warrior. Cards on the field cannot be returned to the deck. So as the name implies, it fights Glad Beasts. So, I mean, we don't really see Glad Beasts. I feel like I see them once a month, maybe. And this is a counter to Glad Beast. Its defense is good enough to repel any of the Glad Beasts, so that's pretty much the point of this card.
Yep, makes sense. Like you said, there's not really much point in countering something that isn't in the meta. But if it ever comes back again, like you said, it's come back a couple times, at least for a little bit, so...
Yeah,
maybe then.
And there could be some other archetype that comes along. I can't name one that does that. Maybe some other deck that does contact fusions. I'm not sure. Contact fusions. Yeah. Some of the Geospatian cards, I think, do that, or Elemental Hero cards.
More cards that aren't meta relevant, but yeah,
even less. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, upcoming news this month: Tour Guide's Mission Bingo. Kaiba Cup, of course, is happening in a few days, so get ready for that. Duel Quest. Certain characters are coming to the game in mid-February, most likely Loomis and Umbra. Duelist challenges late February, and Tyranno Hassleberry obtainable late February as well.
Sweet.
All right.
And also our announcement. Do you want to do that now?
Yeah. Next week's episode is episode 100. So I guess to celebrate this landmark, we're accepting any questions you have for us, anything you wanted to discuss. Just let us know on our Twitter page, Duel_assessment.
Yeah, or we're about to go through our contacts. You can hit us up any way you want, and it doesn't even have to be a question. Just favorite memories or any topic you want us to discuss or whatever. We'd love to hear from you guys and make it kind of a community-based episode if we can. Yeah. If not, we'll just do our normal thing. But it'd be a little sad and embarrassing. So maybe if at least one of you guys could hit us up with something, that'd be great.
We're throwing a great birthday party in which no one may show up, but oh well.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, so that's it for us this week. Thanks for listening. Listen to and subscribe anywhere. Someone on Castbox actually asked for the link to the Spotify page. All you have to do is go on Spotify and search the Duel Assessment or Duel Assessment Podcast, and you'll find us. Check out the podcast and more at our website, theduelassessment.wordpress.com. You can find all the written content there. And Facebook.com/The Duel Assessment. Patreon, patreon.com/duel_assessment. Email us with any questions to duelassessment@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Twitter, duel_assessment. Me at Green Ranger CCG, Tech at HS Tech Tech.
That's where we are.
Alright, thanks for listening, guys.
See you guys next week.